Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another deck report. So, Season 6X, week number 7. This is the second part, or the second profile of the week. And this will probably be the first one post Phantom Revenge. Or at least including a strategy after Phantom Revenge release. And this is probably going to be either the most boring or most interesting one to date. So what you see here on the screen is all the duels that I had 2 days ago. I only had 2 losses, and those 2 losses were completely out of my control. I think this loss, Noah was on Yummy. I think it was Yummy. I think it was a Yummy variant. Gamer Games was on Mitsurugi K9. The other duels that I had, I think a lot of these were Killer Tune. The Killer Tune strategy that also debuted in Phantom Revenge. 2 of them were Draco Tail. I think 2 of them were Mitsurugi Yummy. Now we go to day 2. This is my second day of testing. 2 out of these 3 losses were to Malice, and I will show you one of the replays involving that loss. Electric Bomb, I think, was on Pure Yummy. No, this was Mitsurugi Yummy. Yeah. Shout out to Biscotto. If you don't know who he is, he did top YCS Bologna with Lunalight. Really good player. He innovated the branded fusion strategy in the deck. We did win against him. He was on the Killer Tune deck. And the last duel, I also had the replay, was against Sky Striker. So, you already saw it by the title. You already know what deck it is. But let's talk about it. It's Eniacraft. So, Eniacraft, for those who are unfamiliar, it is a flip pendulum archetype, the first of its kind. The main win condition behind this strategy is to flip your monsters and either burn your opponent with Eniapolis or just beat them down with your monsters after they're flipped, because some of these are big. Like, these are 3,000 attack. One of the monsters that actually help you win the game very quickly is Arcatail. Arcatail does burn your opponent every time a monster touches the graveyard from your opponent after it's flipped. Leon can burn for every time your opponent adds to their hand, including its own bounce effect. So I'm figuring that if you're watching this, you already know what Eniacraft is. If you don't, I will give a brief refresher. So all the level 1s share the same skill effect. You pay 300, excavate, chose 3 different 3 Eniacraft cards. They don't have to be different Eniacraft cards, you just 3 Eniacrafts in general. That's why you see so many 3-offs in the deck. Like, you kind of want a guarantee reveal and search. And your opponent just adds 1 to the hand. You have 4 monsters that do this. Every level 1 has a reactive flip effect according to an opponent's action. This one reacts to your opponent activating a monster in hand. This one reacts to your opponent activating a monster from graveyard. This reacts to your opponent trying to special summon a monster, with an effect. And this reacts to your opponent adding to the hand by an effect. And yes, Mo Charmies does count for this one. Mo Charmies count for both this one and this one, to be fair. Alazornia, upon flip, can banish a random card from your opponent's hand. Tromaria can negate a monster. Ogneria can shuffle up to 3 from Banish or End or Graveyard. Orgia can pop a monster. So there are ups and downsides to this. I also forgot to mention every level 1 Eniacraft can add any Eniacraft card upon being flipped. So if you know that your opponent might react on you in some shape or form, Orgia is pretty much the best one because activating from the hand is one of the most common interactions your opponent will have against you on turn 0, which does trigger the Orgia, make it so you can get a guaranteed card in your hand. The others are kind of situational. All these flip effects are mandatory, so you have to be wary of that. That this is both a good and a bad thing. It is a good thing because it makes way for your opponent to be chaining against your cards if they do have reactive effects, which does play into Leon. We'll talk about Leon in a moment. The bad news is it makes it really awkward to interrupt your opponent because it doesn't matter if they're turn player or not. These are always chain link 1. Let's say for example, you want to negate a monster with Traumaria. If your opponent has a trigger effect of a monster, they will always resolve the monster before you resolve Traumaria. So that is a really big downside there. You have the bigger Eniacrafts. The bigger ones can pop a monster during the end of the battle phase if they have less attack than 3,000 in this case. They all have reactive flip effects as well. These are more specific. Leon responds to a chain link 2 from your opponent's cards to your cards. Arcatel responds to a trigger that will destroy a card. Axapixia reacts to targeting. And Atorimar reacts to any card activated on the field during your turn, specifically yours. Atori can negate whatever card they're activating. Same thing with Axtapixia. Arcatel does not negate, but it just prevents the destruction of your cards during the turn. And Leon bounces 3 cards, non-targeting. It could be either your or your opponent's cards. Obviously, bouncing your opponent's cards does apply to the burn effect of this card, which can come up, especially if you're trying to win with Eniapolis. While Arcatel is face up, your opponent takes 900 for every monster that touches the graveyard. This is really strong against a lot of combo strategies because it pretty much puts them on a ticking time bomb, especially Malice. Pixea makes it so you cannot target they cannot target neither of your or their cards in their field or graveyard, which is really relevant for a lot of decks. Atori, upon being flipped on a new chain, can mandatory set all your opponent's monsters, very similar to the Rumba Karma Cannon. But after it resolves, those monsters are permanently set. They cannot flip, they cannot change their battle positions. So now that we got that explanation out of the way, they do have a field spell that can bounce your cards. If your Eniacraft is flipped, it can also bounce it or place it on the Pendulum Zone. Creelise just places a card into your Pendulum Scale. This card probably would have been really broken in any other Pendulum deck. That is not this one. Rebirth is pretty much mulligan for Eniacrafts. It does have the banish effect to either special summon or flip an Eniacraft if your opponent summons a monster. Really good effect. Sadly, this only returns Eniacraft monster cards. I would have liked that this card returns Eniacraft spells because I've actually lost 1 or 2 games due to me opening multiple copies of Indianapolis. This is not a consistency card. This is just an extender / combo enabler. So when it comes to Indiacraft, there's not a lot of innovation. Something really cool about this deck is that you almost will not brick with this deck. Like this deck has a 92% starter opening factor if you're playing on 40. Like you have all these cards just add you cards, and then you have the 3 release, which is another consistency card, so that gives you 15 starters. You also have the mulligan card that can draw you into those starters if you draw like other Indiacrafts. So consistency wise, this deck is really consistent. This is a very slow-paced deck, so it really makes it awkward for some of your opponent's hand traps. Like, most armies, except for Perulia, does do a lot to this deck. Ash Blossom is a really common card that can either destroy your runs or like be awkward against you. Because if you open multiple Indiacrafts, you can just play around it. And then they're down a card. And if you ever end up flipping Pixea or Alazonea, they just lose more cards in their hand, making it very awkward for them to play. The bad news with this deck is there's not a lot of innovation you can do. Like, the non-engine space in this deck is very limited. I'm gonna show you 2 different deck lists that I made, and these were the decks that I've been testing around, like with these duels. Day 1 was mostly the first build. Day 2, I think the last 2 games, or the first 2 games from day 2, were with the second build. Let's start with the first build. So this is a Banisher one. So the explanation here is Dimensional Fissure makes it so your opponent cannot draw and lock you. Draw and Lock Bird is a really strong hand trap against this deck. This also really helps against the Killer Tune and the Draco Tail matchup, which are very shaky matchups for this deck. The reason Killer Tune and Draco Tail are very awkward matchups for you is because they can chain block their cards, and depending on how they chain block, it makes it really awkward for you to respond with your Indiacraft, because these Indiacraft cards can miss timing to flip themselves if your opponent activates cards in the middle of the chain. So yeah, like, Dimensional Fissure just helps with that. It is just a really strong floodgate in general. I've won numerous games just by having this card up alongside the protection of either Arcatail or Astapixia. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Shifter, no explanation there. Sol and Luna and Karma Cannon, I feel like these 2 cards are kind of staple in this deck. Like, Sol and Luna makes it so you can reset or flip manually your Indiacrafts if need be. Karma Cannon is just a really strong like disruption against your opponent. And if you had your Indiacrafts already set, this also flips them back down in order for you to get a second win with those effects. This also is pretty good against like Link monsters if your opponent just happens to have a bunch of them on board. So this is the first build of the deck. We're citing Banisher, just another card to just really teeter down your opponent. You can play Vanity's Fiend. That's one thing I seen other people do. I just like Banisher because it is just a normal summon. You can just summon on the spot. Banisher alongside Astapixia is really strong. Like, just not being able to target your Vanisher is really huge. Like I've won a lot of games where my opponent just tries to imperm this, and you just flip the Astapexia. They lose out on their imperm, and then you get to banish another card like face down. Like they lose out on so much with that when it comes to that, and then you have the banisher that's just controlling the game. Charmies, like we're just gonna side these one going second. One card I like siding out a lot going second, and it is a little bit awkward doing it. It's Rebirth. So Rebirth is a really good card, but when you're going second, you're almost not getting the full value out of this card. So I pretty much always replace it with another draw card, like the Fua or the Meows. The one thing about Rebirth is really good against really simplified board states if you're trying to like match out your hand properly. I have lost one or two duels. You will see one of the examples where I could have capitalized on my opponent just not playing into cards just because I sided out the Rebirth. Yeah. This is the second build of the deck. I guess before we go over there, we should talk about Spear mode. This can be Lava Golem as well. You can play either of them. I just chose Spear mode because the more problematic decks for this deck to face are pretty much the ones that have like a really full established field, because they have way more more interactions than your interactions. The way you want to win with the deck is by interacting with their cards. That's why outside of the Charmies, you don't see real hand traps. They just stop my opponent. Like if they don't want to full commit, that's fine. That means that you're committing into your inner crafts. If they do full commit, then they get punished by Sphere mode. So that's the reasoning behind that. Now let's go to a second build. So this version of the deck. Instead of just using Fissure to just like stymie the opponent, or using Soul and Luna or Karma Cannon, this one relies on resolving Mega Zaborg, or Zaborg the Mega Monarch. One of the monsters that you'll be using to tribute for Zaborg is going to be either another Zaborg or your high level Crafts, because they are light attribute, which means you get to pick the monster from your opponent's extra deck. I did lose one game against Malice because I misplayed with this card. You will also see that in the replay. The extra deck is almost not relevant. You are going to play Tachyon Dragon and both Tachyon Dragons, because they turn 7th Tachyon into a searcher for either Mega Zaborg or your high level in-your crafts. Post side, this can also add Vanity's Ruler, because this is a light level 8 monster. And we're playing 6 copies of it just because we kind of always want to see our win condition. Like, this version of the deck is really consistent. I think I resolved Mega Zaborg probably like 5 to 6 times after making this build. We're playing Soul Exchange in the main deck. This deck doesn't really do well going second if your opponent has way too many interactions against you. This card is really strong, especially against Yummy, because most of the time you're going to try to Soul Exchange for Mega Zaborg. You can also do it for your Craft monsters. They are kind of big, like 3k attack is enough for you to start like shaving a little bit of your opponent's life points. So you're probably wondering why is Pot of Desires in here. The reason Desires is in here, and the reason it's 44 cards, is because despite me saying that this deck had a 92% like non-brick factor, you can end up breaking because of the non-Ania craft cards. And other cards that could break you as well are pretty much like opening multiple copies of redundant cards. Like I lost one game because I opened 3 Indianapolis, which was very unfortunate, and I was going second. Like we were never winning that game. I did side the Banisher stuff, like against like the appropriate matchups. I do side in the Charmies, and because of very specific decks like Killer Toon and Draco Tail, Arca-Tail is actually not a bad one. This can depending on how your opponent does their chain links, you can prevent Urgula and Pan from destroying your cards. You can prevent the Killer Toon monsters from popping your cards as well, and you pretty much like punish them because moving forward they kind of have to like keep comboing up in order to like first secure the grind game against you, which means that they're losing a lot of life points in the process. Not much to explain here. Liger Dancer is in the format, so you kind of have to play Perfume Dancer in your extra deck. I think the Jurax stuff is standard. I have 1-2 games because of Pegasus Administer. People just don't play well into this card, or just forget about this card when they're trying to pop your board. I haven't entered. I think I won a game by doing enters going second. But yeah, that's it for that. Again, not a lot of innovation, just a few tricks and tips and tricks. Let's go to replays. So this one is against the Killer Toon deck. You can already see the Ghost Bell and the Fua like in their hand. These cards are not that good against this deck. They did open Prosperity, which is really strong. This deck only has 3 hard locks, which is the Killer Toon Field Spell, the Q, and I think it was the Quick Play Spell. Those are the only 3 cards that lock you. So you can actually innovate a lot with this deck. Again, shout out to Biscotto. He is trying to innovate that deck at the moment. So yeah, let's get started to the replay. We don't go first. They go Reiko into Clip. They go Overtake to reveal. They summon the mix. They add the Q with the mix. And now they're trying to synchro summon. All the Killer 2 monsters can use a monster in their hand to synchro. So they're going to synchro it 4. That's going to make the Track Maker. This is a Killer 2 Searcher. And I think if it touches the graveyard, you can bounce a card. The mix can optionally pop a card. I think it pop a monster. And Clip can just clip a card out of our extra deck. They clipped away our Baron Blossom, which might already tell them what deck this is. Because you're not gonna see that card in too many different strategies. So they're going to Field Spell into Q, Q into RS. RS is like Target Negate. This can dismount itself to make a synchro on my turn and grab back tuners. I played against a guy who recycled Ash Blossom with this. It was very annoying. They're going to add their Prosperity. You can see that they are in extravagance in this build. I think a lot of Killer Toon players are on this. I think somebody topped a regional in Greece this past weekend by playing extravagance in their deck. Killer Toon Secret is probably the best ad here. Yep, that's what they go for. Red Nova, for those who don't know, you combo this off with the Q. or with the Reiko, and that can summon Reiko from deck because this is a Fire Fiend. So they set 1, they pass, they do the cooldown synchro spell. So we start with Arcatail. So the way Iniacraft wins going second is by reacting to their cards with our cards. You kind of have to play this mind game with your opponent and put them on the situation of whether or not to activate the appropriate cards against you. So we set the Atorimar. They don't know Atorimar is in our hand. For those who don't know what Atorimar is, this card can activate to negate an opponent's card. I already brought it up at the beginning of the video, so you already should know if you got to this point. So when you're going to use this, we're going to activate Dimensional Prison, well, Dimensional Fissure, and this is why this card is good in this deck. This card, if you're going second, this card forces interactions. A lot of players can win the game against you if they don't react to your cards appropriately. This is where the Fissure comes in. This is a card that kind of threatens the entire deck because this is a synchro deck and it relies on like their synchro summoning. So they're probably gonna change the mix, the remix here. Yep, they are. If they don't change the remix to this Fissure, anything you bring back with remix and make with remix will just get banished. So they're going to do the effect. It's going to we're going to chain the Atorimar, and they're going to chain RS to the Atorimar. And they're targeting the Atorimar itself. We are chaining Sol and Luna. This is going to target the Atorimar and the RS and going to set them both. I probably would have RS to negate them in Dimensional Fissure and just make sure everything resolves afterwards. But to each their own, right? I digress. So this is pretty much a blowout because if this resolves, this will get set. This will negate the remix, and this Fissure is going to stick. So this does resolve. We're going to activate the Orgia, and if they flip this Skill Tune Synchro, we can flip the Atorimar because none of these effects are once per turn. For those who are unaware, I think we just win this duel. Like, you'll see if they don't scoop, you'll pretty much will see it. We're just going to get a lot of advantage. So this grabs the Iniapolis to grab back the monsters, and we're going to reset the monsters. They're going to flip that back. We're going to chain the Karma Cannon. They're going to negate the Fissure. They're going to summon Q to Red Nova. They're going to Reiko to Max. And they're going to attempt to destroy. Actually, no, they chain the Maker. We kind of lost this duel. I kind of forgot how it went, but this is just showing you how annoying the matchup is because they can chain block to prevent our flips. So, game 2, we're going to Alzionea. They're going to activate the Perulia. They're going to try to Delta. We're going to chain the Arcatail. The Alzionea is going to resolve. We're going to activate the Orgia. Orgia is going to add Reverse. Well, it adds the Pixea instead. So they're going to Extravagance. We're going to flip the Alzionea. They're going to chain Ash. They're going to overtake into mix. We're going to Sol and Luna the mix. They add the Q. They're going to normal the Q into Red Nova. We're going to Karma Cannon that. They're going to chain Kulto Synchro. We're going to chain Alzanea. This is not once per turn. So they show the Track Maker. They're going to Q and Nova. Nova into Rico. They're going to make us banish. So they try to pop. We're going to flip the Pixea. They're going to... I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, like Rico was chaining one and already targeted. That's why it pops. They're going to attempt to pop. We're going to flip the Arcatail. They try to Ash Blossom. We're going to Arcatail attack, burn for 900. Pixea attack, burn for 900. Activate the Okinea. And this was a misplay. We should have activated Release first. And that would have made it so we can like play with our cards more. And they lost because of Anniapolis. Because Anniapolis is going to burn them for 5,400 during the end phase. So now we're going on game 3. They normal mix for Rico. We activate Fua, they chain Ash, they go overtake, they go for Echo, they go for Track Maker, they go for Clip, they add the field spell effect, trigger for the Q, extra normal summon, Q effect, summon Red Nova. They're going to make Track Maker, and they're going to Nova and Q. They activate Duelist Genesis to add Kulto Synchro, and that's the turn. We activate the Asta Pixea, we set the Atorimar, we activate Asta Pixea, they chain Sun Warning, we try to Fidger, they try to Kulto Synchro, we flip the Atorimar, and they don't have other reactions here. So this is pretty much checkmate. Like again, Fidger is just really good in this deck when you pair it alongside stuff like Atorimar and Izaleon. Because it just this always will force a chain link 2 out of your opponent if they do have an option. Aircraft release into Ogneria. We add the Tomaria, going to add. That adds Anniapolis or Pixea. That adds Pixea to set Sol and Luna. And we're going to flip Sol and Luna. So with Sol and Luna, instead of flipping down the Torimar, we just flip up the Asta Pixea. And this just makes it so they cannot target any of our cards. And this is just very awkward for them, because no matter what they summon with the Q, they can't target with RS, they can't target with Remix, they can't target with the other monsters, and the Dimensional Fissure is just banishing everything. They could get rid of our board, but like these are just gonna add next turn. This draw is dead. It's a dead draw because of the Fissure. So that's one replay. Video is getting kind of long, so you guys let me know in the comments if you want to see more replays. We have one against Sky Striker, and we do have the Malice one. You can guess which. Well, we lost one and won one. So if you are interested in seeing these replays, feel free to let me know in the comments. I am going to end it here. I hope you found this informative to your liking and understanding, and keep practicing and keep dueling.